Transformation Theory. Holographic Human by Janey Marvin. Chapter 1. Thinking Process of the Human Senses and Body Language. Everything made by man comes with an instruction book, with illustrations and diagrams showing you the functions of each part and the way to operate or use it. Not everyone needs to look at the diagrams and read the instructions. Some of us have a natural ability to just pick something up, look at it, and operate or even fix or repair the item. Human beings are holographic beings. Each individual part, down to a small cell, has a diagram with built-in instruction for the whole being. We are three-dimensional, and each individual dimension is in and of itself also three-dimensional. Each dimension of our being is also multidimensional. Our words and our gestures reflect and represent one another. You do not have to listen to the words someone speaks to be able to know what they are speaking of. Just watching their body position and gestures also expresses everything the person is saying and everything the person is thinking. Every human being does know so much more than they do know that they know. The human body, with each organ, system, dimension, field, and aspect, is communicating with every part of our entire being. It is no accident when you just happen to be thinking of someone or something, and it just happens that it comes to you in reality within a short time. They call you, or you happen to run into them. It is no accident that you just happen to do or to not do a certain thing at a certain time, and your life is saved or headed in a different direction just by happenstance. No, not by happenstance. Every part of your being knows every other part of your being and every part of everyone else's being. These are not conscious functions alone, communicating with every part of our being. Every subconscious function within us communicates with other subconscious functions. Holographic Human Transformation Theory has the holographic human maps to be able to read our quantum aspects of our inner self, our subconscious brain. Every aspect of being human contains a hologram of the whole human being. Micro pieces still contain the whole of the human being. Every human being is an oracle, without the gases. We know right from wrong. This is not just speaking in terms of moral issues. This is speaking of every aspect of a life, of your life. Going a certain direction or heading in another direction, approaching another human at a certain time or not approaching them. Every micro to macro decision is already known within you regarding yourself and every other human being. Just as the fact that you cannot even come up with the wording for the sentence to ask a question without already knowing the answer. Every word of your question already has within every word of your answer. Every aspect of your being is holographic, and unless and until you realize this fact, you will never overcome your natural man state of being. There is a map of the human body divided into 6 specific areas from the head to the toe where most everything in our life is represented. Though it is true that every part is holographic, it is also true that every specific part has its own specific function. Begin simply by learning the basics, and as your knowledge grows, your ability to truly know thyself will grow. The holographic human map has specific guidelines and details which might seem complicated at first, though they remain consistent throughout the complete understanding of the body map locations and individual understandings and interpretations. Once you learn the 6 specific areas of the body, and once you learn the basic facts and functions, you too may become your own healer. You too may know thyself, and once you know thyself, you also have the ability to heal thyself. Once you know and heal thyself, you may know and heal others. This information is not always pleasant to realize about yourself because you are not a perfect being. You are a human being. You have frailties and sympathies, weaknesses and limitations, and this map and this information will give you an opportunity to gain knowledge about yourself. Within the human brain and throughout the central nervous system are program models and pathways of accessing these program models. These human program models have come from our own life's experiences and our conscious perception, interpretations, and judgments of these experiences. The compilation of these experiences, perceptions, and programs create our mortal experiences for the rest of our lives. Old programs can never be changed, though new programs can be created. Being able to recognize within the 6 different areas of the holographic human body map of your own positions and gestures will help you know these program models and their limitations they impose upon your life. A very simple illustration and process to read your own and others' body language. This is based on the central nervous system's firing sequence through the human senses. A very small portion of the human brain is the part of the brain that we refer to as conscious. Most of the human brain is actually not even consciously actively used by us. It is said that Albert Einstein used 10% of his brain. 50% of the data the subconscious receives in order to gather data to create our personalities, our beliefs, behavioral responses, and emotions is simply sensory data. This sensory data, for the most part, comes from our environment and is processed in the subconscious prior to conscious ever having any access to the sensory data. This sensory data, for the most part, comes from our environment and is processed in the subconscious prior to conscious ever having any access to the sensory data. The data actually enters the brain as frequency, vibration, and other data conscious is not familiar with. This is the reason I say that if a tree falls in the forest and no one is there to hear it, does it still make a noise? I say no. It isn't audible, interpreted as a sound without the conscious mind being present to hear it. Subconscious is data processes and then comes up to conscious as the sound of the tree falling in the forest. The central nervous system as a part of the whole human is also complicated. All we will mostly learn here is the simple routes the nervous system takes from the human brain throughout the human body. Each human being's central nervous system, if laid in one string, is long enough to go around the Earth, out into space, and around Jupiter and back around 6 times. So, do humans have a lot of nerve? Yes, every one of us do. We just haven't learned the map of being in charge of all of our nerve yet. You will literally read through the body movements and gestures what the subconscious is processing for conscious. Holographic Human Map with its 6 areas is a representation or hologram of all the sensory data being processed in the subconscious. No words need even be expressed. Just a body position, just a gesture, just movement represents the whole system's dimensional information. Movement literally has meaning as it takes neurofire through the central nervous system for movement, and each neurofire has a neuropath it travels through. As you or someone else ask a question, just the body position, gestures, movements give the answers to the question. Just 6 areas of the human body, each area containing one of each of our 6 senses. Each of our human senses has specific functions for the data received through them. The different sensory data is used by the subconscious to create the different program models of our being. Oftentimes, someone might ask me a question and I just reply saying, exactly. Some people do more gesturing with their arms and other body parts while talking than others do. Even small body movements and simple body positioning in the areas of the holographic human map indicates subconscious processings in the area of the map. Location of the human senses on the holographic human map. The beginning of holographic human transformation theory is simply based upon the 6 human senses. The right side of the body, above the shoulders, is where the sense of sound is indicated as being processed in the subconscious. The right side from the shoulders down to the waist area indicates the sense of touch being processed in the subconscious. The right side from the waist down indicates the sense of taste being processed in the subconscious. The left side of the body above the shoulders is where the sense of sight is indicated as being processed in the subconscious. The left side from the shoulders down to the waist is the area indicating the sense of energy being processed in the subconscious. The left side from the waist down indicates the sense of smell as being processed in the subconscious. Physical location of the human body of movement or position and its meaning. Any movement in these areas as listed indicate many different models and programs stored in the subconscious. a compilation of memories and processes that, when combined and ran by the subconscious, make up all that we are and much more than we had consciously thought we might be. This information begins on a simple basis, though again, every aspect of our being fits into one of these areas. The literal meaning of each movement. Every part of our body, including our organs, have specific function. Many body systems work closely together with other body systems to actually complete successfully vital functions for the entire body's wholeness. Reading body language through the Holographic Human Transformation Map is identifying the different areas of the brain where different data is stored and processed as specific programs that creates our entire being. This is not guessing or estimating based upon observation over a period of time among different groups of individuals. This map applies to every human being, no matter the age, race, creed, or life's experiences. It identifies the 6 primary areas of the human body where the 6 human senses are neurofired through whenever that sensory data and its related program models are being activated in the brain. The thinking process for each of the human senses. The human senses each have their own individual function and purpose. In addition to having different functions, they are each processed differently through the brain's data compression and programming models. Sound and sight data is used to create our past and our identity and our personality. Touch and energy data is used to create our ability to be in the present and to create our relationships and intuitions. Taste and smell data is used to create our future and our beliefs about character and strategies. All of the programs and models in our brain are comprised from sensory data from our environment. There are many different processing programs used in the human brain to put all this data together. Sensory symbols, their submodalities, and their meanings. There is variety of symbolized representation of the human senses, beginning with the simplicity of just a volume to symbolize the sense of sound, dim or bright to symbolize sight, temperature to symbolize touch, frequency for energy, sweet or bitter for taste, and good or bad to symbolize smell. The more you practice symbolizing the senses, the more you will learn about working with the brain's programs. The subconscious, with the way it functions and program models it creates, does all of its work based upon the sensory symbols coming into it. Even our own conscious thought has no objective nor understandable meaning to the subconscious. The sensory experiences for the subconscious are literally frequency, brightness, and other symbols and indications of the senses. Conscious is the interpreter, the guide and director for the subconscious. So just using sensory symbols to identify a solution, a problem, a goal, everything in our life of a sensory experience is sensory symbolized in the subconscious. Many of the words we use to describe and express our life's experience and ourself are referring to the human senses. We call these sensory symbols, and just attracting the sensory symbols to different things may help the subconscious find what you are seeking. Giving a color, shape, texture, sound, vibration, taste, and smell to the answer you have a question about. Your subconscious functions based upon the sensory symbols, and it might take a bit, but the answer to your question can come with just symbolizing the answer. Oftentimes, if you can't think easily of a sensory symbol for something, this might indicate a sensory block regarding the thing you are sensory symbolizing. Not being able to get a symbol of a certain sense indicates a sensory block in that specific sense. Each human sense is used to create very different program models of our being, and everyone has sensory blocks in one or more senses about different aspects of our life. The more you practice using sensory symbols to get information from your subconscious, the easier it will become for you to think of or to know the sensory symbols actually associated with the subconscious data. Symbols themselves have meaning. 50% of the data the brain takes in from our environment is symbol data. This data is also sensory associated, similar to when you learn to symbolize just the different senses. Major and minor data compression programs for the human senses and their effect on the body. Major data compression programs refer to programs used by associated senses as identified on the Holographic Human Transformation Map. The senses of the right side and on the left side of the human, directly across from each other, are the associated senses. Major data compression programs are used by both the sense of the right and on the left side of the map, and minor data compression programs are used specifically by only one of the two senses. These data compression programs have a great effect on the way the conscious part of the brain has access to any of the real sensory data from its environment. The senses of sight and sound have a major data compression program to delete sensory data from conscious access based upon opposite minor data compression programs. Sound is deleted from conscious access based upon sameness, and sight is deleted from conscious access based upon difference. Touch and energy data from the environment is distorted for conscious access by the brain's major data compression program. Touch is amplified for conscious access, and energy is diminished for conscious access by the minor data compression programs of the brain. Taste and smell have generalization major compression programs prior to conscious access, and the minor data compression programs for these senses is taste is generalized by sameness, and smell is generalized by difference for conscious access. Just the way the brain processes the sensory data makes our conscious experience of the environment and our reality very questionable. Examples of minor meta-program processing filters the subconscious uses for data compression programs to file the sensory data. Sound deletes by sameness. This is the reason the conscious awareness of a same sound dissipates after a period of time. Ticking of a clock and other repetitive sounds in your environment. Sight deletes by difference. This is the reason conscious awareness of something new or different to see isn't always noticed at first. Get a new vehicle and notice all the similar vehicles around. Touch distorts by amplification. This is the reason a lot of touch sensations increase to goosebumps. Physical pain is also increased because of the process of amplification. Energy distorts by diminishing. This is the reason many people question their own actions and intuitions. Taste generalizes by sameness. This is the reason we are prone to classify groups of people based upon character traits of others within the group. Smell generalizes by difference. This is the reason most people prefer to do something their way rather than learn from another's experiences. Mind and emotions. The effect on the body. Learn to observe the effects of internal processing on the body. As holographic human beings, there are very precise processes we naturally go through to become everything we become, to be everything we are, and to create everything we create. Each system which makes us a whole being must work together with every system of our being. When every part of our being is not functioning with other parts, it's associated with we can become mentally, emotionally, and physically ill. Our mind is not the only intelligent part of our being. Every micro aspect of our whole has its own intelligence. Every system within each system knows its function, purpose, and time to be a whole part of the whole system. Everything began and still begins with the mind. Without the mind, we do not continue to be a living, working system. Even though all things begin with just a thought, to even have thought, there must already be the complete whole of the thought within us to even think of a thing. As the thought repeats itself and other systems within our whole being recognizes and acknowledges the thought, emotion begins to be added to the thought. The more emotion being associated with the thought, the more chemical released from the limbic system into other systems within our whole being. The more emotion and the chemical release, the more options throughout the central nervous system for neuropaths for the data to be communicated throughout our whole being. Even this process may be consciously identified through our physical body positions, gestures, and micro-movements. As with all things in this life, the thought, emotion, and effect on us can be of a positive or a negative nature. The sum total of all movement is holographic of our internal processings. We have the ability as human beings to be consciously aware of all things we choose to be consciously aware of. We have not been trained other than through specific courses to understand our internal processings. Doing this just based upon the human senses is a very simple way to gain great knowledge of ourselves and what is truly going on underneath all of what might at times seem like just a complicated self. 6 areas of the human body as identified on the Holographic Human Transformation Map is the beginning for you to truly know thyself. You cannot do anything to help, let alone change yourself, if you don't even know yourself. Memorize the 6 areas and the sensory locations on the Holographic Human Transformation Map. Learn the basics of the sensory functions and data programs and gain knowledge of your true self. Using the map to learn to read your own sensory body language along with the program models that go along with each of the 6 senses. Human senses and the human information processing system. As human beings, we are complicated beings, the most intelligent, creative, and progressive of anything living. The different aspects of being human are only as limited as the beliefs of the individual at the specific time of the limitation. Our potential is limitless. It is only our beliefs that keeps us within certain boundaries. The holographic human transformation theory identifies different aspects of our abilities, the different senses associated with them, their functions and associations with each other as a whole system. Many people today are seeking oneness. We each have this within us already. Our beliefs and other program models prohibit our attaining it. Every organ, system, cell, and atom of our entire being has its own intelligence. Every quantum part of us knows its own function and the way it interrelates with other quantum parts of us to naturally be one as a whole being. The 3 elements of being human. Being human is a totality. It is a whole system, which is comprised of numerous other systems all working together to make the system function as a totality, a whole. Every totality consists of 3 individual elements that must work together as a whole system to maintain its wholeness. Every element of any totality must correspond together based upon the physics of correspondence. Each element must interrelate interdependently with each other in order to maintain the totality of the whole oneness. The totality oneness of being human consists of the following 3 elements. 1. Element mind. The function of the human mind is to take all the data from the environment and the internal response to the data, process it, and find or make a file to store it and make a program model out of the data. The human mind is a complex of different elements in an individual for thinking, perceiving, and reasoning. 2. Element emotion. Emotions work closely with the human brain for feelings such as anger, joy, and fear. Feelings are oftentimes subjective and associated with something specific such as an event or individual. Emotions are chemical responses associated with the limbic system in the human brain. 3. Element body. The human body is the mass of substance and systems that distinguishes humans from other living systems. Some of the different systems the body is comprised of is the skeletal system, muscular system, and the overstructures of our physical being. And their sensory elements, every aspect of our human being is sensory associated. Every element of every totality is sensory associated. Every aspect of our being a holographic human is associated with different human senses and their functions. Data compression programs, systems associated each sense and the elements associated with the sense as well. All aspects of each human sense overlays and affects the whole of each sense and all its aspects. Sound, sight, associated with elements. 1. The sense of sound and sight are associated with our mind and therefore all the functions, data compression programs, systems associated with these senses, and the elements associated with sound and sight. Therefore, human thought, thinking, reason, and perceiving is program modeled based upon things you hear and see in your environment and your own conscious response to these sounds and sights. The human brain simply takes the sensory data from these 2 senses, deletes by sameness for sound, difference for sight, compares the data to other files, and stores it for use and program models. 2. Touch, energetic, associated with elements. 2. The sense of touch and energy are associated with human emotion and all the functions, data compression programs, systems associated with these two senses, and the elements associated with touch and energy. Therefore, human emotion comes from the experiences through the sense of touch and energy from your environment and your conscious responses to these sensory experiences. While this data is being processed, it is also being distorted. Touch by amplifying the experience and energy by diminishing the experience. Taste, smell, associated with elements. 3. The sense of taste and smell are associated with the human body and all the functions, data compression programs, systems associated with these two senses, and the elements associated with the sense of taste and smell. Therefore, what distinguishes us from other living creatures is program based upon our experiences with taste and smell from our environment and our conscious response to these experiences. The data compression program for taste and smell is generalization. Taste generalized by sameness and smell generalized by difference. Sound, sight, and touch are the most impactful senses we use to process data internally. The other senses have been greatly denied, ignored, and discarded. This keeps us at half our potential at the most. These three senses have the greatest impact on the human brain, mostly due to our human tendency to consciously respond or react to these three senses. Conscious response is a significant part of our whole being and is processed in the subconscious through the same programs as any data from the environment. Everything we hear from our environment, everything we think in response to what we hear, everything we see and touch and our conscious response along with all their functions, data compression programs and elements have the greatest impact on our whole being. This leaves us at half our human potential and mostly excluding the senses of taste, smell, and energy and all of these sensory functions, data compression programs, and their elements. As a result of this human nature, humans are not whole beings, not the holographic human we were created to be. By this very nature, half of the human mind, half of human emotion, and half of human body capability is greatly denied, ignored, and discarded.